Williams syndrome is a congenital disorder resulting in a variety of clinical findings. In this video, we'll give you a visual mnemonic to remember the cause and clinical findings of the syndrome, so you'll be ready for the boards and warts. Let's head off to the holiday store, where this scene takes place. Our main character is a human who grew up as an elf in the North Pole, portrayed by Will Ferrell in a famous holiday movie. In the Pixarized universe, we know him as Williams Ferrell. And coincidentally, the name Williams helps me remember Williams syndrome. Now let's take a look at his getup. Pointy ears, a green suit. Yep, this guy looks like an elf. This elf here should help you remember that elfin faces are observed in Williams syndrome. In other words, the faces of patients affected with Williams syndrome have a distinctive elfin look. Williams, an elf. What a great symbol, I know. But we're not done yet. This elf is a pretty loaded symbol. If you remember anything from the movie, you might know that our main character is extremely friendly with strangers. I mean, just look at his smile. This friendliness should help you remember the extreme friendliness with strangers observed in Williams syndrome. Historically, Williams syndrome was also called Happy Elf syndrome, a name that helps me peg the facts above. Now, this wouldn't be a Christmas store without a tree, and we've got one right here. Yeah, I know this tree looks kinda weird. I'll get back to its shape later. But for now, I want you to focus on the figurine decorating the top of this tree. Yep, it's an angel. Now, I don't know about you, but this heavenly figurine makes me think of the number 7, because heaven sounds a lot like 7, doesn't it? Williams syndrome is caused by a congenital microdeletion of the long arm of chromosome 7, and you can remember chromosome 7 by picturing the heavenly figurine here. We'll get back to this tree in a moment. But let's pan to the back of this store, at this table full of balloons. Our store has been decorating with balloons, in line with the festive season. This pile of rubber balloons is made of an elastic material, which should help you remember the elastin gene. Coincidentally, Williams syndrome includes a deletion of the elastin gene, which is found on chromosome 7. Just remember our elastic balloons, and you'll have elastin down. But what is Williams doing? He's hanging out by this fish tank up front filled with fish, of course. Fish is our symbol for fish. I'm talking about fluorescent in situ hybridization, by the way. FISH is the technique used to see if specific genes are present by mixing DNA samples with fluorescent probes that light up when they bind to a complementary segment of the chromosome. Importantly, the FISH technique is used to confirm a diagnosis of Williams syndrome, because Williams syndrome is caused by a microdeletion in chromosome 7. This microdeletion is too small to be detected by traditional karyotyping, so you need to use FISH to confirm the gene deletion. Just know that if you're trying to confirm a diagnosis of Williams syndrome, you need to order a FISH assay. Alright, now that we've talked about the cause and diagnosis of Williams syndrome, let's go over some of the clinical findings you might see. Besides the elfin faces, there's a few more you should know. First, take a look at the other inhabitant of our tank. If you watched our other videos, you might recognize this turtle as a recurring symbol for moderate to severe intellectual disability, colloquially referred to as developmental delay. Because what's more delayed than a turtle? Intellectual disability and cognitive delays are important findings in Williams syndrome, which you can remember by picturing this turtle here. One caveat I like to mention is that verbal skills are usually unaffected. We've already talked about the extreme friendliness with strangers, so the unaffected verbal skills shouldn't be hard to remember. Next, take a look how Williams is taunting the fish and turtle. He's raising this calcium ice cream high up in the air because turtles and fish love ice cream. What a tease, Williams. This calcium ice cream high up in the air represents how hypercalcemia or elevated calcium levels are seen in Williams syndrome. The mechanism behind this is not well understood, but it's believed to be related to an increased sensitivity to vitamin D. Now, why does this matter? Well, recall that most infants receive routine vitamin D supplementation, especially if they are being breastfed. But in Williams syndrome, hypersensitivity to vitamin D can cause hypercalcemia. Consequently, supplementation of vitamin D is withheld in patients with Williams syndrome. Just thought you should know. Now let's return to this tree and its weird shape. This is a bit of a pack symbol, so let me explain what's going on. First, notice how this tree is curved, with 3 branches that kind of make it resemble the aorta. Yep, this tree is our symbolic representation of the aorta. Next, I want you to focus on the base here. That base has 3 pieces holding the tree in place. Kinda like a valve, right? This 3-piece valve should make you remember the aortic valve, since it opens into the aorta. Finally, I want you to notice how this tree has not been fully unpacked. It's still wrapped in twine near the base, which makes the bottom of this tree near the valve look a bit narrower than the rest. Taken together, this tree is our symbol for supravalvular aortic stenosis, one of the classic cardiovascular findings of Williams syndrome. Supravalvular aortic stenosis refers to a narrowing of the aorta right above the aortic valve. And you can remember this just by picturing our tree right here. Man, what a great symbol. You don't even want to know how long it took for us to come up with this one. To close out this scene, let's talk about the other employee out back, filling up some red balloons with gas. Notice how the balloons on each side resemble kidneys, and how the end of each balloon looks like the renal arteries entering the kidneys. Well, our employee is squeezing these ends before he ties them up. A picture that should help you remember renal artery stenosis. Renal artery stenosis is a narrowing of the renal arteries going into the kidneys. This narrowing reduces flow into the kidneys, kind of like squeezing air before it can enter these balloons here. And that's it for Williams syndrome. Let's recap. Williams syndrome is a congenital disease caused by microdeletion of the long arm of chromosome 7, which includes the gene encoding elastin. Because it's a microdeletion, Williams syndrome requires the FISH technique to be used for diagnostic confirmation. Clinical findings include elfin facies and excessive friendliness, cognitive delays, and hypercalcemia. Cardiovascular complications to look out for include supravalvular aortic stenosis, as well as renal artery stenosis. Alrighty, stop messing with those fish, Williams, and help me unpack this tree. We've got shoppers coming soon. Until next time.